Nope, these pictures aren't of Lebanon after Christmas because they don't believe in Jesus and are a godless people. These pictures are of an aftermath of an industrial action in Tianjin, China that killed at least 173 people. So, what happened here? Ruhai Logistics was a private firm established by the Tianjin Dongjiang Port Ruhai International Logistics Company. I did not pronounce any of that correctly. This smaller wing of the conglomerate was tasked with the handling of toxic substances such as corrosive agents, fuel, and compressed air. With such a business, several storage facilities would be needed for the containment of all the chemicals. One of these storages was a warehouse and freight yard in the port of Tianjin, in which large quantities of nitrocellulose and ammonium nitrate was stored. Nitrocellulose is a highly flammable substance which is used for nail polish, coating leather, and rockets.
To bomb Donetsk children.
Ammonium nitrate is primarily used in pesticides and herbicides, though its usage has since been banned in several countries. So with such substances being stored in bulk in a relatively small space, you'd think they put them in a proper containment. No, not at all. The environment explosive material was being kept in was hot and dry and prone to fires. At around 10:50 p.m. on the night of August the 12th, 2015, there were several reports of a fire in the Binhan district of the city. Firefighters would respond in standard fashion, unaware of all the chemicals being stored within. If the firefighters knew, there could have been a chance to minimize loss of life with a mass evacuation of the local area. Due to the fire, slowly, chemicals would start to react to the increasing heat. At around 11:30 p.m., an explosion would occur, tearing apart the warehouse, causing glass of nearby buildings to shatter and a seismic disruption of 2.3 on the Richter scale. Moments later, a second and even larger explosion would occur, releasing enough energy to match 28 tons of TNT. The explosion was so large that it could be seen from space as it was captured by a Japanese satellite. 173 would die in the explosion, most of them being firefighters and local police officers. The event would be the single deadliest in modern Chinese first responder history. Due to how public the spectacle was and how close Tianjin is to Beijing, the Chinese government was swift to react. It was such a large event that the government explicitly said that they weren't going to cover it up, unlike all the other times. Then they proceeded to shut down over 400 Weibo accounts and dozens of WeChat groups for spreading misinformation. In subsequent government investigations, it was found out that the warehouse and the adjacent freight yard weren't supposed to exist. The company illegally built them. As previously mentioned, none of the hazardous material were being properly stored, and worse, the building was over capacity. Basically, Ruhai Logistics built a bomb. To add to the frustration, not only did Ruhai Logistics know about the violations of logic, but they weren't even doing it legally until 2 months prior to the explosion. Ruhai Logistics didn't have a valid license to handle chemicals until June of 2015, so all the hazardous material within the warehouse shouldn't have been there in the first place. Also, while at ground zero, investigators found lethal dosages of cyanide, a shit ton, 20 times the max annual exposure a human body can handle. It was so bad that it meant that locals could be killing themselves with a near-fatal dose of cyanide just for living in their homes. Unfortunately, accurate documentation of what was in the warehouse at the time of the explosion has long since been lost, poetically because of the explosion. Over 49 business executives and local leaders were arrested over the incident. Some arrests were for valid reasons, such as Ruhai Logistics chairman Zhu Zhuwei for taking bribes and illegally storing cyanide. Others occurred over a bit more suspicious grounds, such as Vice Mayor Yang Dongliang for serious breaches of discipline raw. This is despite having no tangible connections with anything to do with the accident. To add stokes to the flame, Zhu Zhuwei was forced to pay 700,000 won, or about $100,000 US, in compensation. Dao Liang was sentenced to 15 years in prison. You can make that of what you please. Unfortunately, due to the closed-off nature of China, the Tianjin disaster has mostly been forgotten by the public psyche, especially here in the West. But I believe that the story of the disaster provides a very good cautionary tale of when something seems a little bullshitty. Whether it's the Chinese government shutting down your Weibo account for spreading misinformation, or just being a ground worker putting a bunch of cyanide in a room full of explosives. Always be aware and skeptical of your surroundings. This has been Mr. Asian Pie. See you on the flip, and don't be stupid.